Hi, everybody. I think what's going on here today is very important. It's important to show to those heads of the states and IAEA that here are we, the people who oppose nuclear power and who think this whole thing is a total bullshit and they should immediately stop it. What I'm going to tell you is a war story. There is a war, as all of you know, there is a war going on the doorstep of European Union in Ukraine, and this war was unprovoked, and it's a very bloody war, and it was started by Russia. You might wonder what's the connection to the nuclear industry, and I can tell you, the connection is that the Russian nuclear giant called Rosatom, or as we call it in Russia, a state nuclear corporation, Rosatom, they are directly involved in the war in Ukraine. First of all, 2 years ago, the nuclear power plant, largest one in Europe, was occupied by Russian army, together with the people from Rosatom. And until today, they are at this nuclear power plant that's called Zaporizhia, with 6 nuclear reactors. And they are there for only one reason: to blackmail the rest of the world with a big nuclear accident, because they think it will push Ukraine to surrender, and it will push European countries and other countries supporting Ukraine to stop their support, which did not happen so far. But the situation is very, very serious, and the probability of nuclear accident at Zaporizhia is very high, and it will be very high for as long as Rosatom and the Russian army controlling this nuclear power plant. But that's not all about Rosatom. Another thing is that Rosatom is supplying Russian army with important parts, like important to produce tanks and bombs and missiles, and it's just and Rosatom is really became part of a Russian army. In general, it was designed as a geopolitical arm of Kremlin, distributing dependency on Russian technology and Russian nuclear industry, Russian technicians around the world. And this is how bloody fascist dictator Vladimir Putin is trying to spread his influence, political influence, geopolitical influence around the world. So I think you got it already. I mean, Rosatom is like the big absolute evil. It should be stopped. But the example of Rosatom is, well, it illustrates us very clear what is nuclear industry. The military side of this industry is the main one. It's in the center. I mean, they might say all the time that they are civil, they're just producing electricity, we need to avoid climate change, and that's why we need nuclear industry, and why we need to make big investment into this. But that's bloody bullshit, and all of you know here, it's bullshit. Nuclear will not help us to save climate. And, well, to finish my speech, I just want to point one more time that other people already pointed out here about it, but I just want to repeat. This thing is, the nuclear is a military thing, first of all. It's about a weapon, it's not about electricity. Well, second, it's very slow to help us to combat climate change or to stop climate change. 10, 15 years, 20 years, sometimes 30 years, it's how long the construction of reactor takes. At the same time, we need climate action now. We need it today. We don't need it in 20 years. It's going to be too late already. Nuclear power is very, very expensive. I mean, back in 1990, you could build a big reactor for $1 billion. Now you have to spend more than $10 billion for the same reactor. And on the contrary, we have renewable energy. You don't need 10, 15, 20 years to deploy renewable energy. I mean, you can build big wind power or a big solar power plant in just 1 year and start to reduce emission and start to produce electricity. So it works much, much better than nuclear. So the whole thing, well, yeah, one more thing I forgot. It's about Emmanuel Macron that was already mentioned here. At the time when Emmanuel Macron here is calling for support to develop nuclear power, and he looking for money to build more reactors, and at the same time he's trying to pretend he's on the side of Ukraine in the war, and he's even threatening Moscow now with sending French troops to Ukraine and all that. At the same time, French state-controlled nuclear industry is building lucrative business with Rosatom. There is a nuclear fuel facility in the German city of Lingen where a French company Framatome owns it. And exactly at this time where we are standing here, they are working to bring Rosatom to this German city of Lingen and start to produce jointly nuclear fuel there for European reactors. And I think it's pretty much cynical, it's immoral, and it should, I mean, such things would not happen. I mean, 5 years ago, I would not even believe that the European head of state, the head of state for one of the biggest countries in European Union, is such a immoral bastard. And I mean, nuclear is like really, really bad evil. We have to stop it. I mean, it's not about what's going on here today. It's not about climate. It's not about doing anything good for people. It's just about a bunch of people in Swedes trying to get money for their nuclear industries. It's about nuclear lobbyists that just trying to make a lot of money and effectively take this money out of our pockets, out of pockets of taxpayers. We should never ever let them do this. Shut down all nuclear power plants. Thank you very much.